Mike, here we go again, man. Bitcoin breaks $107,000.
Yes,
Like, what's
sir.
next? Are we going to a million next year?
Sailor thinks so, right?
This gets me excited, but I'll be honest. At the same time, there's this whole notion about, well, Bitcoin only goes up when Sailor buys. So what's going to happen when he's not going to be able to buy? Have you heard this rumor?
No, I'm not. Do tell. Do tell.
The whole reason why Bitcoin is going up is because Michael Saylor is buying, which personally I don't believe in because Bitcoin has been around since 2008 and it continues to go up. It's not like Michael Saylor was buying back then. So there's this other FUD about quantum, how it's going to be able to break Bitcoin, and I think the quantum Google Willow chip.
Yeah,
Uh,
that obviously had zero impact on
yeah,
people. No one believed that, obviously, right? Like I think everyone continued to buy, but I think you just keep getting this. Everyone now is saying is on the Bitcoin train, right? Like Ray Dalio. I mean, he's been on it for a little while, but he says Bitcoin is hard money as the national debt continues to increase. Uh, BlackRock recently said that they recommended a 1 to 2% portfolio allocation to Bitcoin. Obviously Trump has been saying a lot of good things about Bitcoin, with this, like the state of Texas is like pushing, for the strategic reserve. And then recently the spot Bitcoin ETF surpassed 500K Bitcoin cumulative net flow inflows. So all signs point to it is not just Sailor, right? Like everyone is on board, and I think that's really pushing the narrative right now.
what I am seeing right now is a lot of activity, specifically Solana, Avalanche. We've got really big headlines about Avalanche that we'll get to at the end of the show. But in the meantime, I want to share something with you. So the Electric Capital report came out. It's a developer report, and everybody says follow the developers. And
Mm-hmm.
this is where the developers are going, Mike.
Yeah, Solana was the number one fastest growing ecosystem in terms of new developers. Over 7,600 new devs were building on the chain, and like this is really no surprise. I don't think. There's been so much uh, retail activity with the pump.fun meme coins. All the just a lot of the conversation in the past few months have been about Solana and all the activity there. Um, and yeah, I think there's really no surprise here in terms of just mind share to new developers, and when they come into the ecosystem, into the crypto ecosystem in general, they're going to gravitate towards the ecosystem that they hear about most, which has certainly has been Solana in the past few months.
But if you look at the top 10 fastest growing ecosystems in 2024, I'm surprised by this. Eigenlayer, number one. I mean, did you see this coming?
Um, I think you gotta have to frame this statistic a little bit because like you see again, these are a lot of the ecosystems that have been mentioned a lot, that have been hyped up over the last few months. But a lot of these are kind of coming from smaller developer bases to be able to grow um, on a monthly overall basis, right? So I don't doubt it. Like Eigenlayer, they launched their AVSs this year, so a lot of people are building on those. Aptos has been a pretty hyped up ecosystem. They've gained a lot in TVL. Solana's there. ICP is the very surprising one to me. Like it it is pretty interesting. Like over the last 6 months or so, I've actually heard that they have done a lot of kind of like grassroots marketing and doing like hackathons and events in like kind of areas that aren't like quite like hotbeds for crypto. I know one of my buddies here in DC ran an ICP event. I heard they were pretty active over in Kenya from the people I talked to over there, and I imagine many other markets that they've been doing these kind of on the ground events. So I mean, I think that is the one that sticks out to me a lot as kind of the surprising one. But it seems like that grassroots strategy has worked out for them.
I know that ICP, from what I understand, is the fastest chain, followed by Aptos. So from that perspective, I'm not completely surprised, just because maybe developers are gravitating towards really fast networks. But I did talk to, this is just one person that happens to be a developer, and they thought the onboarding was just a little bit too complicated. And so they went to SUI. So that's one of the things, right? You hear about the Move language and SUI and Aptos. It's really easy to build if you're a Web 2 developer. I don't know, is that the case for ICP? I'm not entirely sure. It sounds like their value proposition is that they're super fast. But to be honest with you, I don't come across a lot of ICP builders.
Yeah, and ICP is also used as a Bitcoin sidechain that, especially with the growth of the Bitcoin ecosystem, that could be one of the driving factors. But that was the one that stuck out to me, that they were able to grow their monthly overall developers and break into this top 5 of this list. So well done. Yeah.
Something else that really sticks out is so United States is leading in terms of crypto developers, which is so ironic because it's the one country that has the most strict regulation, or that we're aware of, right? Like the largest country with the most strict regulation up to this point. And India is in second place. I mean, what do you make of this this chart with the United States being a leader? Do you think this will continue?
I'm not surprised that the United States is the leader at all, because I just think that most of the tech industry, whether it's builders, funders, historically have come from the United States. And yes, so what's interesting is that in developer share, the US leads, but they've been dropping for every year since 2015. So I'm not surprised at that either, because of the regulations and how poor the regulations have been for crypto here in the US. But I also expect that to turn around now, because the regs are going to get friendlier. So I think that the United States is going to, they're no longer going to lose developer share, and they're likely going to grow from here on out as the regulations become friendlier to crypto.
The other aspect of this that I'm thinking about is just the overall labor cost. It would cost a lot more to hire an engineer in the United States to build out your smart contracts than in India or Ukraine. And in terms of talent, they're very talented, but you don't have to pay them as much. So I'm also wondering if that has a lot to do with the level of activity being in other countries and United States dropping.
Yep, it could be, and there's always like cost benefit analysis to that, because I think just in general you find that a lot of founders and entrepreneurs originate from the U.S. And it's a smart thing to outsource that a lot of the development to these lower cost countries. But then there's always the kind of the management of that is the talent pool, and then the communication issues. So yeah, you always got to kind of weigh those pros and cons when you decide to outsource. But I think just in terms of kind of the core devs, the talent base, the U.S. has typically led both in general tech as well as in Web3. But certainly there are other countries and other regions that have excellent talent, and you can see that they're going to continue to grow. And I think everything is going to just overall the space is going to continue to grow, and you're going to onboard Web 2 devs to Web 3, and the pie is going to continue to go up and to the right.
Well, one area that's been sort of going up and to the right is on the NFT side. Mike, do you own any NFTs yourself?
I've got a few. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm like a huge trader or owner, but I've definitely got a handful.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to see a lot more activity pop up here. You've got news about Pudgy penguins.
I don't have a PENGU. I don't have. I wish I did. Obviously.
Yeah, well, they're getting ready to list on Binance. Looks like, and then there's other news that are popping up too. So, Milady, the NFT, they have a cult meme coin. Which goes live at over 600 million FDV. There's also Magic Eden that had their airdrop, and they saw 700 million despite having issues around the claiming process, and even OpenSea as well, which I personally haven't been hearing a lot from them in some time, but they're getting ready to have a new website. So this kind of got me thinking, are we reaching this point in the cycle where NFTs are back?
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. And I think we talked about this before, that NFTs, metaverse are going to come back. They were just like the grumblings of some activity that was building up, and I think all we needed was that catalyst to kick off the bull run and get people get people back excited about them. So certainly the teams are who are building in an NFT space are absolutely increasing their activity. And then I think that's just going to trickle down. So I think NFTs are back, man.
This Absolutely. Is not a very popular opinion, but selfishly, I'm not ready for it yet, because I feel like I want to accumulate some more. I'm not ready to reach that frothy part of the cycle yet. And when those things take off, that's when you're kind of approaching the end. And so there's this part of me that's like, well, let's just hold off on it just a little bit longer. I don't want to end on these highs, but
don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, Mick, man. Just jump in. The water's nice. Just jump in.
Water's nice. I just want to be able to accumulate more, right? I want to get more. I want to fill out my bags a little bit more.
Do we need to end this episode early so you can jump on to Blur or OpenSea or Magic Eden and start spending?
Oh man, that I don't know what I'm doing on that front. I really don't. NFTs, it's a different world for me. Now I do own a few NFTs, but can I say that I know what I'm doing when it comes to that? I'm much more comfortable looking at ecosystems, understanding where the developer activity is and what applications, what narratives are going to be doing well. I'm more of a generalist than I am an expert. Definitely when it comes to NFTs, there are people that know so much about them, and they just make so much money just focusing on NFTs. And props to them for doing that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Don't overthink it, right? I like cute animals. Those are the NFTs that I typically buy, right? And I'll kind of go into an ecosystem, maybe a newer ecosystem, and kind of find, some of the top 5 or 10 popular ones, and then kind of see what I like in terms of art. So I'm not like a trader. I'm not in it to make huge dollars. And then I'll also just kind of take a look at the community. I'll jump into their Telegrams and Discords and Twitter and see how active they are and supportive of each other they are, and then I'll just jump in, and then I'm not spending tons of money in there, but I just kind of get to the vibes and the art, and that's kind of how I do it. So,
but Mike, there's a lot of people that are just starting out, and when you're looking at Bored Ape or some of the CryptoPunks, some of these insanely high NFT valuations, you're wondering look, do I even want to jump into this, or I can just go buy some monkey meme coin out there for just buy a few shares of that and just call it a day?
Yeah, I mean, people who are just jumping in are not gonna spend 50, 60, 100K. Like now the floor for the Penguins is over 100K, right? No one's gonna buy that. And maybe they'll look at the token, right, because that's going to be a little bit more accessible if when it comes out. But if you're buying an NFT, it's kind of like it's kind of like wine, right? It's kind of like art, right? It's like you like what you like. No one's gonna no one's gonna kill you over something that you like. That's such a it's such based on personal opinion. Obviously if you're doing it to make money, that's a whole different ball game. But as kind of a casual collector, someone who enjoys community and understands community, that's what I look for: a strong community combined with art that I like. So that's kind of how I approach it.
We should probably have a separate episode just on NFTs alone, because again, this is something that we haven't touched on for 3 years, and then all of a sudden, that last year of the cycle, it really becomes relevant. So we'll see. Right now, it's still AI meme coins, but we'll see. It might transition a little bit more. But one of the really neat ways of understanding of what's to come is by looking at the latest fundraises. And Mike, you obviously are a VC. You work in this space. You live and breathe this stuff. So you bring to me every episode 3 projects that are currently going through funding rounds. And today, surprisingly, is a really well-known name.
Yep. Yeah. So Avalanche, the L1 Avalanche. Last week they raised 250 million in a private locked token sale, and this was led by Galaxy Digital, Dragonfly, Parafy Capital, with participation from many others. And actually, just about an hour ago, so we're recording this on Monday afternoon, they just launched their major Avalanche 9000 upgrade. And this is the biggest upgrade in the history of their chain. Lower transaction costs, scalability, enhanced interoperability. You know, they moved to kind of like that sub chain, app chain, Cosmos similar structure. So yeah, this is the upgrade for that. So you know, now they obviously have a huge war chest to grow. Be curious to see how they spend that money. You know, I imagine they're going to do a lot of grants and funding for teams building on Avalanche. You know, hopefully they'll do some community initiatives. But yeah, they've got a huge war chest now to grow post this Avalanche 9000 upgrade.
Avalanche to me is very well known around I think they're very well respected around gaming and also around real world asset tokenization. I feel like those 2 areas are going to do really well for Avalanche. So personally, I've got high hopes for Avalanche moving forward. There's a few chains that when you look at previous cycles and you evaluate whether or not they'll be successful, there's some question marks around some of those chains. A lot of people obviously are very bullish on Solana. Avalanche, I feel like, is not talked about as much as Solana, but I definitely think that it deserves to be up there amongst those leaders in the space.
Yeah, and I think they've done a good job, like you mentioned, a couple of those verticals, gaming and RWA. They've done a good job, like being very targeted with initiatives towards those builders. You know, a lot of support there, a lot of kind of expertise that they've provided with a lot of the teams that are building on there. So, you know, I think that's certainly an attractive thing for a blockchain to have, and to be able to support those builders and give them kind of customized feedback and customized programs to help them build and grow. So I think they've done a good job there.
And there's one area that they are not afraid to spend money in, and that's when you go to a conference and you see their entire booth set up. It's usually the best one at the conference. They spend a lot of money on that, and you get like people playing games out there. It's like an arcade. It's really cool. And the other part of this is, you know, you build these side chains like Beam, for instance, which provides developer tools for game developers. So it's really cool to see Avalanche, the actual chain, and everything that is really stemming from that entire ecosystem. So really cool stuff to see from Avalanche with that funding. Next, Mike, is Commonware. Now, this is one that I'll be honest, I'm not too familiar about. So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about, but looks like they raised 9 million.
Yeah. So Commonware raised 9 million. The round was led by Han Ventures, and Dragonfly was in there as well. They've been busy, and participation from a bunch of angels. So what's interesting is they call their blockchain an anti-framework blockchain, right? So what that means, I believe, is that like it includes all of these customizable building blocks to build a blockchain that's like specific to the developer's specification. So instead of, say, you know, you build on an L1 like Avalanche or Solana, like you have to kind of use their specific tools, their onboarding tools, you know, their infrastructure, and kind of just get siloed into this developer experience. Now with Commonware, devs can build blockchains with, you know, very, very customizable tools to build for specific kinds of apps. And I love that because I think that, so, kind of one of our sub theses for investing at Deep Ventures is what we call differentiated primitives, and like more kind of use case specific blockchains, and protocols and infrastructure, as opposed to kind of just like general L1s and L2s. So I think that's kind of the future, where if you have a specific chain that is like custom built for, let's say, gaming, or custom built for institutional finance, right? Like there are specific things about those chains that can be better built for those use cases than a generalized framework like a generalized L1. So and Commonware seems to be able to allow developers to build these customized chains. So I love this direction that we're going towards. So these kind of specific chains.
It sounds like they're picking up on Business 101, where you have a market that is extremely competitive. And so you look at some of the most successful players and you think, okay, they're good at X, Y, and Z. I'm just going to focus all of my efforts on X and really excel on that. And that's what you're seeing with, some of the Airbnb competitors, right? When you look at the traditional Web 2 world. And so I think it only makes sense that that is the direction that we go into. And we'll start to see chains that are not trying to be all things for all people, but are just saying, look, don't come to us with this, this, and that. But what we're really good at is this right here. And that's what we're focusing on. So 100%. That's really cool to see. Yep. Next is MegaEth, which raised 10 million on Echo.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the one I want to dig into. This one is super interesting. Okay. So MegaEth is an L2. It calls itself the real-time blockchain, super fast, 100K transactions per second, less than 1 millisecond block times. And look, the technology is great, but that's kind of like what's not necessarily interesting about this fundraise. What's interesting is that they raised 10 million in less than 3 minutes on Echo, which is Kobe's fundraising platform. So essentially, they did kind of a public sale. Now, I don't want to call it an ICO, because actually the fundraise was for equity plus a token warrant. So it wasn't like a pure ICO where you get, tokens right away, like back in 2017, 2018. But it was kind of a public sale that they did it at the valuation that they raised their seed round in. And it started this, it's starting this conversation of like, are ICOs back? Is crypto VC done? Airdrops, are airdrops done? Because like we've had, the Hyperliquid airdrop went really well, but there was a lot of airdrops that did not go well in this past year. So I think it's it's a very comprehensive, large conversation that we can have. I don't think we could talk about it all here. But yeah, it's raising a lot of questions on like different ways to fundraise and how and also distribute your tokens to your community.
So the whole kind of ICO strategy, I think it makes sense because look, we're going to have the most pro crypto president coming up here in the next administration, and he is bringing on the most pro crypto teammates. And so I think that it kind of makes sense that this type of launch is coming back. And also based on where we are in the market now, I think funding is always needed, but I kind of get a sense, just being from the outside looking in, that once we get to the more bullish part of the cycle, there's more opportunities to raise funds than just the traditional VCs. And then look, once we get back into the bear market, that's probably going to change again, right? So True. To me, I kind of see it, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on my thinking on this?
Yeah, I think there's levels. There's definitely levels to it, right? I agree. The market definitely has an impact on the success of these types of sales, and I think just overall, kind of bringing it back to the MegaEth context, this is inconclusive. I think, right? Like there was MegaEth has they're a pretty high profile project. They already raised a seed round, from some of the most respected investors in crypto. Dragonfly, like we mentioned, Robot Ventures, Vitalik, Kobe, right? A lot of angels, a lot of heavy hitters, right? So like that kind of signal was already there for this fundraise, this public sale, right? So like, but if you take, another, in the ICO boom, there were hundreds and thousands of projects that no one knew who they were. Like you couldn't. It was just kind of a random team that hasn't built anything before. You didn't know who the past investors are. Most of these didn't have any past investors. So like it was. I don't think you can draw any conclusions from this specific sale. But I do. I think that in general, as a project, you don't want a small handful of VCs controlling the large majority of your tokens. I think that's, everyone agrees with that. For the most part, I think you definitely want to be able to get your community involved at an early stage and reward them. And I think the trend is great. I think the idea is great. I don't necessarily think that I think there's improvements that you could have to the ICO process. I think VC is still going to be very important. I still think airdrops are going to be done. So, I'll say I think there's still going to be a lot of iteration around fundraising. And I think that's just one of the great things about crypto is like it changes the capital formation process, improves upon it. And it, I think it allows you and everyone should be iterating on it and trying to improve it. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of different factors. There's the bull market factor. There's the past investor factor. There's a lot of factors. So I think overall this is kind of inconclusive.
People complain about a lot of things. They complain about doing airdrops, complain about VCs, but yeah, we still continue to do it because these are the things that right now it's what's needed to make this space thrive. And I feel like we are making improvements. We're making advancements. So obviously we're doing the right things. We're on the right path, and we'll continue to learn from any mistakes that we make. And so that's just how life goes. And that's a good way to end it here today, Mike. Real pleasure as always. Thanks so much. If those that are watching and listening, if you enjoyed this type of content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Give Mike a follow. Check out Deep Ventures, and we'll catch you on the next time.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.